How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 26th episode of Meet the Entrepreneur. This is ARTEEN ZAHIRI, and I'm joined with ELHAM CHOWDHURY, my co-host. Today we're speaking with Raad Ahmed, the founder and CEO of Lawtrades, the coolest legal tech company in the world. That's right, this startup provides a freelance marketplace that connects pre-IPO and public tech companies with top lawyers and legal talent for on-demand support. Really cool future of work play here. Also, Lawtrades earlier this year raised a very unique Series A round, which we are going to discuss in detail in this podcast. Definitely stay tuned. Raad offers some very unique perspectives, insightful commentary. It's going to be a good one. So with that, let's get things started and jump right in.
How's it going, everybody? My name is Raad Ahmed. I'm the founder and CEO of a startup called Lawtrades. Lawtrades is a marketplace that connects pre-IPO and public tech companies to a network of freelance legal talent. So it's a marketplace. So on one side of it, it's companies using our app to find, hire, interview, and work with freelance lawyers, freelance remote attorneys, paralegals, legal ops. And the other side of it, it's a bunch of people that didn't go the traditional legal career route and work at a firm and decided to launch their own practice and be entrepreneurs and make a living on their own terms. So that kind of segues into like the idea of how I started the company and where the idea came from. It was in law school. I did go to law school. I did not become a traditional lawyer. But when I graduated, to not let my law degree go to waste and also like not like disappoint my parents, I wanted to do something else within the legal industry. So I wanted to start my own practice and do it online and travel and work remotely and not have a boss and not have to wear a suit and tie to work. But there wasn't a website or platform that did what I thought would exist within legal. But you've seen it sort of happen in other platforms, right? You've probably heard of Upwork, Fiverr, and obviously some of the more later ones, Uber and Airbnb. So I was super inspired by all of those marketplace companies. And I was just like, why the hell doesn't this exist for legal? Lawyers are super unhappy because they're overworked. Clients are really unhappy because they feel like they're overpaying. So the only person that really benefits is like the partners at law firms because they're the ones that are making millions of dollars in profits off the backs of everybody else. So I was like, okay, this has to change. Someone's gonna, if I don't do it, somebody else is gonna sort of do it. And like, what do I have to lose? I'm already in 6 figures of debt in law school debt. So like, whatever. Like, I was just like, let me just YOLO it. But actually, prior to that, I did do another. I guess I could call it a startup, but it was just like a one-person internet company during my second year of law school. That was an app for one of the first apps on the Facebook App Store, and that did well, and it grew to about 30 million hits a month, and I made some money off of banner ads here there. But not to make it too like long-winded, but that gave me the confidence to do like another real internet company, and so I started Lawtrades, and really the idea started from like wanting to do my own practice, not having any resources or websites that allowed me to do that. So I was just like, all right, let me give it a shot. And multiple years into it still. So that's Lawtrades a bit in a nutshell. But yeah, actually it was a little bit longer winded of a story than I would have sort of said, but very succinctly, I wanted to work for myself as a lawyer, and a platform didn't exist for that, so I decided to make one.
No, yeah, great story. Makes so much sense to bring like the marketplace model to the super old school traditional law firm industry. So glad to see that you were the one who did that. That's really cool. I'm curious, Rod, where did that initial passion, interest for law derive from? And you went to law school. I'm curious to hear a bit about that experience as well. Outside of the fact that it caused you to take on a ton of debt, but maybe you could talk about, for our listeners also interested in law, a little bit about the passion there and what the law school experience was like.
So where did the inspiration from for Lawtrades or come? I mean, I loved law school, especially like my first and second year. I thought the third year of law school was kind of a waste. I don't know how many years business school is, like 2 years, but I feel like it could be like 6 months. Right. It's just like unnecessarily long. Um, I guess like at some point in law school, kind of, um, I got kind of bored, and then I realized like when I would graduate, I would probably get like more bored because I would be doing like very similar things after I got out. But I did love the reading and writing involved in law school, and I feel like I still take some of that with me uh, while building this company. I know a lot of people like to sort of like just kind of like shit on grad programs and say an MBA is useless and law school, lawyers are pointless, whatever. But it does like teach you something that I feel like is goes a little bit deeper than your undergraduate studies. So in law school, you're just like reading a ton. You're reading like really dense, like arcane, boring materials. But you're forced to sort of understand like what the underlying thesis and takeaway and point is. And at the same time, you're writing a lot. So you are like taking your readings and your thoughts and really boiling it down into very concise takeaways and conclusions. And I feel like reading and writing is something that I feel like doesn't get talked a lot about in like startup land and in entrepreneurship, but like it is like it's just you have to do that as you're sort of building your company. You have to like love to read, and you have to just be, not that you have to do it, you have to naturally be inclined to want to sort of do that in order to evolve and build like an everlasting company that lasts for decades and decades, right? You have to constantly be evolving, and you have to figure out like, what's changing in the market and how you can implement this new thing and how you can become better. Like the skills that I had when I started Lawtrades was really around like product building and design and getting eyeballs on a website. And now it's like it's management, right? Like it's how do you it's probably the stuff that like, would be helpful if I actually went to business school, but like it's managing people and it's hiring and it's recruiting and it's creating processes and it's scaling systems. So like I always find time to read, and I just love writing in general. I write on my website, I write online, I write tweets. So it just kind of went naturally hand in hand. But I guess like at some point when I was in law school, and part of maybe the reason why I went there was it was like a prestige thing, and I was like, I want to have the title as a lawyer, I want to have the JD and all of that. But like, like status is just kind of like temporary, and then you sort of realize like actually like, like this is what I would be doing for the next 20, 30 years. And that's when I just kind of like, not there's anything wrong with like, like working at a firm or anything like that, but I just knew I like felt like I wasn't taking enough risk, and I felt like I wasn't challenging myself enough intellectually. So I kind of just diverted from that path and took this huge bet and huge risk. But, I mean, it was just fun. It was just like when I compare like the fun level to like being in law school and like working at a firm versus the fun level of like creating something new on the internet and doing it with like really cool people. And like it was just like, the internet company was just sort of like, way more interesting to me. So I kind of diverted off that path. And plus like I was like, it's like when you're young and you're like in your like 20s or 30s, like you have a lot of time, right? So like it's not like I had like some immediate deadline to like build Lawtrades into like $1 billion company, in X amount of years. I was just taking it day by day. And there was no pressure. I mean, I did like make certain sacrifices, I guess. Like I moved back home after I graduated law school, while like most of my friends got like full one-bedroom apartments in the city, and they went out to like party, and I was basically at home like pretty broke. So like there's that like short-term sacrifice, but like I was never really like that much of like a social person to begin with. I'd rather just like, stay up all night, like working on a product idea or like reading an awesome like book and like just thinking about that, like, things that sort of like help my brain work a little bit more. So, trade-offs, but I thought that it was, for me personally, like it just seemed way more interesting than like hitting the club.
Yeah, absolutely. You definitely took a huge risk. made a lot of sacrifices, but clearly now, all those years later, it's really paying off. And on that note, earlier at the start of the year, you all raised your Series A financing, right? Congratulations.
Thank you.
And I saw in your Substack post that you had over 100 different investors that participated in the raise. Would love to hear kind of about that financing process of the big Series A and how you kind of cultivated all these investors together for this round.
Yeah, so we did our Series A pretty um, differently compared to most traditional Series A. The way we did our seed round was, was led by a bunch of venture capitalists, Draper Associates, Social Capital, 500 Startups, et cetera, et cetera. And that was cool. But I really wanted to work with like a select group of people, and in particular, like I wanted to, empower our users that were already on the platform, both as customers and supply side users to, have some skin in the game and be able to sort of invest. And prior to this tool called an RUV, which is called a roll-up vehicle, basically being invented, there's really no easy way for founders to raise from, 100 plus accredited investors that are individuals. So the RUV solved for that. It essentially allows founders to raise from up to 250 accredited investors for as small as like $1,000, basically, and get them on your cap table. But it's not like 100 plus people in cap table. It's one line on your cap table, and an AngelList basically manages all the signatures, the back office, the back and forth, like deal closing, and all of that. So I just thought that was just like a brilliant idea, right? Like to be able to like, work with like 100 plus people instead of like two or three VCs, seemed like a very like again, like the more fun path, right? And I think like for most of my life, when I sort of am like at the crossroads of a decision, I'm usually like, what is more fun to do, right? And I'll usually sort of pick that. So I was just like, these people will probably be thrilled if I allow them to invest. And like on top of that, there is like a strategic advantage because like, they're less likely as users to like go and use a competing platform if they've like invested in it, right? And like how different would companies like Airbnb and Uber look like if they allowed their hosts or their drivers to invest into their Series A or Series B rounds before they went public, right? That would have been probably like some next level shit right there. So I was just like, all right, like no one's really done like a really big RUV. I think like ours is probably like the largest. Like it totally raised like $6 million. But we ended up sort of like pulling it together, and I think it's like, it's a testament to like building, a really good community, building like a solid base of customers, and just working at it, over multiple years to gain their trust to eventually allow you to sort of like invest. So I wrote like a whole like tweet thread on this, which like if you guys have show notes, you can always just like link it there. That goes through like the story by story. But like it was just kind of crazy how it all just got like put together. Nobody was really investing in legal tech at the time that like we tried to raise our Series A the year before. There was a big company called Atrium, who's one of our main competitors that raised like $70 million, famous founder, Justin Can. And they went out of business. So like no VCs were really sort of talking to us. So I was just like, all right, like we got to figure out something. And, we got the business to be cash flow positive prior to sort of raising it. And we used, the RUV. We used this platform called Stonks that allowed us to basically live stream our pitch to like thousands of people, and we basically raised like $250,000 like in like a couple of minutes like through that. And then eventually I think we had like close to $2 million in commitments through that. And then I made this little link that had me do like a virtual video pitch with our deck and our financials in there. So then like that link got like kind of went a little bit viral and got shared around with other people. And then we raised like another like 500,000 there. And at the end, actually, after most of our users and broader community members invested, we actually had a VC at the end, put in money and sort of like fill up the rest of the round. But I wasn't really expecting that. And, it was kind of cool how it sort of turned out. We like set our own terms. We picked the people that we wanted to sort of work with. And it was, it was like a scalable way of of raising money. I recorded the pitch video once, and hundreds of people saw it, and we raised like a few $1 million that way.
Yeah, super brilliant approach to the financing. No better way to get validation there than to get your customers with skin in the game. I think that's really insightful. I appreciate you sharing the perspective. We'll definitely link your tweet thread to the description. I did see your LinkedIn post about the way you leveraged the RUVs for the cap table. It's really interesting. I hadn't seen it before, and I think the way you guys executed it was really cool. Um, yeah, and I'll ask one more question, and then I'll flip it over to Elham. Um, Clearly, you guys take very innovative approaches to the way you operate your business and grow. I wanted to ask you about how you achieved product market fit. I know your company underwent a big pivot around 2019 when you shifted towards mid-market and enterprise. With the initial focus was around small business and startups. Would love to hear about the whole product market fit journey there.
Yeah. So when we publicly launched Lawtrades in 2016, and we had raised our seed round then, we went through 500 startups. We thought that we were building for the right market, which at that time was early stage startups and small businesses. And we did a good job of growing the company, growing the top line revenue, but also like losing a massive amount of money in that process. And we were kind of just like, you know, at that time that was like the norm, right? It was just like you burn a lot of cash in order to grow your top of the line, and then at some point you get like profitable, right? It's when I think like Uber was still private and a bunch of these marketplaces were still private, so they were like like really focused on top line revenue. At some point we were like, all right, like this isn't, the unit economics actually suck, and if we continue to raise money, we're going to be left with like less than like 1% of the company. Like something, I mean, not exactly probably like 1%, but something like really, really low. Like it, your main strategy can't be just like keep raising money while you're still like burning lots of cash. And like probably, to fast forward to now, that's probably that's the advice that everyone is preaching now. And we learned this sort of like in 2017, 2018, when the model really wasn't working, right? And we're just like, holy shit, like it's actually like way more important to just like control your own destiny and get to some semblance of break even or cash flow positive than just like impress investors with like top line revenue. So, just the sort of TLDR on that is like, startups and early stage like companies spend way less than enterprise. So when you're a marketplace that's transactional based, and a small business uses you for like less than $1,000, and at best they'll use you 2 or 3 times a year, and then 90% of them go out of business. That's not really a good like user base to like build like a company off of. um so we didn't have it there, and it was very, very obvious to us that like we didn't have product market fit. And at some point we had to sort of basically like fire like 80% of the team, like get rid of our office. And it was just like the 3 or 4 of us. And we had to sort of put our heads together and just be like, dude, we need to grow, but we need to grow like sustainably without like it being subsidized by like VC capital or whatever. And we realized at that point that there was this one user using the platform like every single day. And he had this title called general counsel, and he worked at this company called Equity Zen. And we were just like, holy crap, this guy's like spending like 10 times more than like our best like small business customer. Like, who is he? What does he do? Where does he work? Why is he using it so much? And we just sort of like later found out that like the actual need for a platform like this, where you can tap into freelance legal talent that's much more affordable than a traditional law firm, is really for legal departments within larger tech companies. They're traditionally understaffed. They have the budgets to actually spend on legal, but like they don't go very far when you're hiring a big expensive law firm. So they love this idea of like finding affordable legal help that they can use on a recurring basis for all their ongoing corporate transactional work, whether it's hiring people, reviewing vendor agreements, privacy stuff, whatever. So we gave him a call, talked to him, found out about him, and then we just like literally pivoted the entire business. We we spent all these years building out this amazing app that was like so cool, and like just burned it to the ground and like started from scratch on a Google sheet, and needed to like, make it so that it works for long-term engagements over multi-months instead of like one-off legal projects. And built the team back up, from like three to now, like I think we're like 30, over 30 right now. But it was a very humbling experience, but it's also like, it sort of teaches you to really view the reality of like where you're at. And I feel like sometimes, I think a lot of founders end up, like not being that open to the truth and the reality that like this isn't working, this isn't product market fit. And then when you get product market fit, you just know it. Like I know other people have sort of said that, but like there's a pull. Like there's just like more customers telling you that like they need this and they want this, but you can't build your product fast enough like for them. So like when you have product market fit, you just absolutely just positively know. And when you don't, you also know because you're trying too hard and you're forcing something that probably shouldn't be.
Awesome. You mentioned that, you had to fire like 80% of your staff, had to like completely repivot your business model. Like, as a startup, you guys already faced a lot of trials and tribulations. So how do you keep your like head up during moments like that? Like what keeps you motivated?
I mean, I'm just, this is what I love doing. Like, I'm just obsessed with this. I have like a level of obsession about like legal marketplaces that 99.9% of the population don't have. And like, I knew that that wasn't really like the initial stab at it wasn't the right path, but like, I wasn't, I wasn't going to give up because even despite all of that, like, what was the next best alternative? Like go like work for somebody else, like that again, not saying that's like the norm for everybody. That was 100 times worse for me to do that. I just view it as like, it's funny because like I don't like watch a lot of sports. I don't watch any sports actually, but I like watching like the sports documentaries like on the Lakers or the Bulls, right? And it's just like that was just like, every year is just like, do we make it to the championship or not, right? And like we didn't for like 3 years in a row, but like I was gonna figure out some way that in the fourth year that we were gonna fucking make it, and we had to just practice and we had to show up and we had to learn and we had to like have hard conversations. And it definitely helps having like a good like co-founder to sort of like, work through that. But it's not, it wasn't fun per se during that time period, but I was just like obsessed with it. And like I already had built up all this knowledge. Like I just knew like there wasn't anyone in that market and in that industry that was working as hard as me. Like I knew that for like I was pretty certain about that. So not that like that means like you just like work all the time and like expect like success. You have to obviously work on the right thing. But like I knew it was a gigantic market still, and there was still like so much potential left there. And if you're able to just kind of like be a little bit lighthearted about it and joke around about it and maybe be a little bit like self-deprecating to yourself about it with your co-founder, you can kind of like get over that hump and many more humps after that because it doesn't really, I don't want to say it doesn't really get easier. It continues to get complex, but it's like the way I've sort of faced the problems isn't at like an emotional level where I'm just like, oh my God, like I'm an idiot, like I'm dumb, like, or I don't like sort of like get hard on myself, which I feel like a lot of people do is just sort of like um like it's a puzzle piece. I haven't found that puzzle piece yet. So like I'm gonna find it if I have enough time. Um so
No, that's super inspiring, man. And I feel like a lot of people in your position definitely like, would have folded. So, whoever's watching this, they can definitely take a page from your book. So that's
well,
awesome.
yeah, I mean like it's like the average startup is like 2 to 3 years and either they
Yeah.
shut down or sell, and
Yeah.
like we're still around. We've raised less than $10 million and like you know, it's like half the battle's just sticking around. And I think Naval Ravikant was like the one that said that like it takes like 10 years, right? And we're starting to approach that, but it's like all of like 90% of our growth came from probably the last like 2 to 3 years, you know? So it's like that meme of like or like I don't know if you guys know like that cartoon image of that guy like hitting the shovel and it's like two of them and then one of them gives up when like the gold is like right there but the other you know and the other one just kind of like keeps going and it's like you know half a centimeter away so like it's kind of like that.
For sure. No, that's really amazing. I know we're almost up on time here, so I just wanted to ask, like, one quick question before we wrap up. What are some of your short-term goals for Lawtrades, and then some long-term goals?
um you know short-term goals is always growth. It's always like you know like are we doing a good job? Like what does the revenue say, right? Like are we growing? Did we double? Did we triple? Did we not? So I think in the short term, and obviously I care about like everything else in the business. Like this is Lawtrades is essentially a platform for like economic opportunity, right? We've paid out close to $20 million to a bunch of our professionals that are on the platform, and like I want to get that number to like 1 billion and 100 billion, you know, at some point within the next decade or so. So that's all important, but it's like the revenue is the scorecard, right? I'm not like obsessed about it, like as if like you know everything sucks unless we hit it, but that is the scorecard, right? And like like you're either hitting that or you're not, and that's why you know I share a lot of that stuff like on Twitter, and I tweet out our investor updates, and I talk about like what we did in revenue last month compared to the month prior is like I love that. I feel like that's like you know that's probably one of the only reasons I would want to become a public company is to like that feels like the Olympics of business. You know what I mean? It's like when you're there, like you fucking made it, you know, and like not made it as like your hard work is done, but like you get to compete with like the best of the best, you know, and like that like that's where I want to be. That's where I want to like sort of like play in that arena of. And I'm not quite there yet, so I'm just gonna do it on Twitter for the meantime. But you know, that's the sort of short-term goal. The long-term goal is I don't have like a whole lot of long-term. I mean, we have like 3 year goals of what we want to get at. You know, maybe I mean in the short term we want to get to like $100 million run rate for sure in the next like 3 years. I think that's very possible. But you know, I want to be number one. I want to be the number one. I want to be the biggest legal company on the planet. I want to beat out all of our competitors. I want to work with the smartest people on this planet that like loves doing, you know, the kind of work that we're doing here. And I just want to win. And like that's where I get all my excitement, most of my 80% of my excitement from. I love my wife and all that, but like I'm super gung ho on this, and this is like multiple years in, but I still feel the same way. I wake up obsessed. I just want to like destroy, you know, like I just want to destroy, you know, in the most positive way sounding, and I get the most fun from that. So hopefully that energy still continues and it doesn't get like boring or whack or whatever, but I don't think so. There's still so much left to do.
Thanks so much, Raad. Really love your mindset and appreciate you coming on to share your insights. Not just the specifics of the decisions you made and the way you executed, but also the way you talk about, you know, obsession and the work ethic, wanting to be number one. That's what it takes to win. So really cool. And we're going to be looking forward to seeing the Lawtrades IPO coming up soon. Thank you for tuning in to Meet the Entrepreneur. Be sure to follow Startup Society to stay on top of the most exciting startups in the country striving to keep the American dream alive. Until next time, take care.